Hey, see the devil keep holding me down, but my people say poppy. See, I come from the gutter, the mud, the dirt, but somehow I got tied to this rock. I was down on my luck, I ain't had me a book. Swear this life shit was rocky. Had to figure it out ASAP, cause see now I got kids, I be damn if they copy. Every store we walk in, I was shopping. If I see it, I like it, I copy. It was days when I didn't have shit. Used to walk through the store putting shit in my pocket. Kicking thugs, you get caught, keep it solid. All them nights that I felt I was dropping. All them nights I was stuck in the lawn in them streets.
I've always been quite sensitive and all because I was a wee fat kid that got bullied and that, so I hate bullies and stuff like that. And I'm not one of these guys that's going to go out and start fights for the sake of it. But what I'd explain to some people when they talk about trauma, like in my day and age, they didn't talk about trauma. You know what I mean? The drugs then, when I started working proper things, used to get all of the top level guys, you know, some people call them gangsters or faces or whatever. They come up. Now, they're not interested whether it costs a £5 or 50 quid to get in. They just want the kudos of coming to the front. So they've got us there and they've looked in. There's just 2 years and there's nothing in the more. On you go. And at that point, there's a blinking lorry driver passes. And I didn't speak Spanish at that point. Like, blah, 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 and I can just see the driver going. So he said, I've just seen these guys throwing bags of stuff at the motor and you can see them. So what we found out was there was a gap of the best they can do is roughly 18 days where I was like in a kind of holding cell type thing. Now, holding cell sounds quite glamorous. This is like the dungeons in Edinburgh Castle.
So, welcome to Social Sessions. Today we're joined with Allan McCarthy. How you doing, Alan?
Hi, Sean. Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So, obviously, we're just going to go through your life. You've got a very interesting life, to say the least. So, I'll take you just back to your childhood. Where did you grow up? Was it Barrhead?
Yeah, born in Barrhead, or as they say around there, Barrhead.
Barrhead.
Yeah, it was quite quiet. Reasonable upbringing. The family weren't mental or anything like that. My dad was the youngest of the family that had come over from Ireland. And of all things, he was the only one born in Scotland, born in Burns Night. And all my uncles, big family. I was this little fat kid, you know, I was quite introverted and all that, you know, and my sort of thing was reading and stuff like that, whereas I had loads of big cousins and all that, and they all ran the boxing club. My uncle was into boxing and that, but my dad being the youngest, I was like, 20, 30 years younger than some of my cousins and all that, and like went to secondary school and I thought I'll be looked after by all my cousins and that. I hadn't thought of they've all left and they probably victimised all these people that are going, oh, you're a wee guy, we'll pick it, take it out on you. So it didn't really help. And it was a bit, you know, talk about the progression of things at school. I get reminded of this quite recently because obviously I'm back in Barrhead and I go to a lot of recovery groups. So there's people I grew up with tell me stories that I conveniently forgot about. And I was this headmaster's pet, you know, and he was trying to send me to like all these private schools because I was fairly intelligent, you know. They'd got some award thing when I was about 10, 11 years old, so I was meant to go to private school. My mum kept telling people this for the day until she day she died. He could have went to Eton and Oxford and I wouldn't do it. That headmaster used to tell everybody the brightest boy he'd ever met. Now that was me up to 11. When I went to secondary school, something must have changed because the headmaster in my secondary school couldn't get me out quick enough. You know what I mean? He sent me away to university when I was 15 just to get me after. I wasn't disruptive in class or anything like that, but I'd, at 12 or 13, took a spot. I'd get chicken pox and I was in the house for 2 weeks, couldn't leave the house. And I'm 6 foot now, but I went from 5 foot to 6 foot in 2 weeks. And in that space of time, it was 1976, 13-year-old, the punk era and all that. My dad had a guitar, so I couldn't have in 2 weeks, you don't master the guitar. But in those days, it was the punk era, so I didn't need to master it. All of a sudden, you know, I'm sort of playing in bands and all that. And I'd be floating in at 3 o'clock in the morning, just going to my pit, getting waiting by my mum, get out of school. And I'd go into the classes and I'd just be like, ugh. And if they asked me a question, I'd just like, whatever the answer was and go back to sleep. So I wasn't causing problems, but I wasn't creating a good atmosphere. If you can get away with that, you know what I mean? And then, of course, being bright, and we talked about in recovery groups about how you lying and cheating and stealing and manipulating. I always hung about with people that were older than me, but I'd be the one that was leading the mystery. You know what I mean? these guys were in work and stuff like that, and they were older at that point, and they could get drink, but people would be hearing about drugs and that, and my must get Valium and that. I'm like, I'll steal that in the house and get. These guys are drinking, they're getting into work and phoning ambulances and that because they think they shouldn't be driving and all. And then it comes back, and who's the one who's getting the Valium? Oh, him. So that happened. There was police up at my doors and me fighting and stuff like that a few times. And what, you know what I mean?
So was it? Were you kind of like introduced to drugs at an early age then? Like obviously running about.
Oh, so. I mean, but not. I had never seen heroin or anything like that. Heroin didn't exist in Glasgow when I was brought up.
What kind of drugs was it then?
People smoked hash, but like by hash I mean like resin, Packy Black and Moroccan and stuff like that. When I moved to uni at 15, I moved to university at 15. They just couldn't hold me at school, so I went to Stowe College because what happened was I got accepted by the university, but the way the funding went, because I was under 16, I had to get a bursary, no a grant, and the bursary, because it's not a right, it's up to them. You have to apply for it, and they can put all these stipulations. I couldn't go to licensed premises because I was so young. So I had to go to Stowe College and do the first 2 years of my degree at Stowe College, and then move to Glasgow Tech, which is New Caledonian. But in those days, a lot of hash going about, but it was still a drinking culture. In Barrhead, there was a couple of guys we knew who were, here's that weirdo guy that smokes dope, you know what I mean? And he'd be pointed out in the street. Now, very rapidly, I had no money and stuff like that. It was in Red Road. I spent all my grant and that, day one, buying a new guitar and that. So I started working in student discos and that when I wasn't even 17. And through that, because I was quite polite, there was a sort of fluky thing happened. We've had a lot of opportunities, and there's no coincidence in life, universe looking after you, whatever. And what happened was the Students' Union, when I was managing Glasgow Tech Students' Union, and there was a gay disco in Glasgow. I think it's still going, but it's changed its name. It was Bennett's. They had some sort of problem with licensing, or they were doing it up, so they couldn't open on the Saturday night, and the Students' Union wasn't opening Saturday night, so the ones out the gay, it was only the Gay and Lesbian Society, didn't have another 15 initials then. And they said, look, can we hire them? And part of the thing was that they had to have students to work there for the insurance. So me and my mate were working, and we got to know, I mean, nobody else, none of the other guys would work because they sort of, we're not working, gays and all that and all that. What they didn't realise, and we found out, fortunately, was all the top models went there, all the other club owners went to Bennett's and all that, and all the people with money went to Bennett's because they didn't want to go to all the other clubs and meet all the hooligans and all that.
No, do you know what? It's a funny thing to say because Bennett's. I think I went to my ex had a gay pal, and we went to Bennett's, and the atmosphere was much better. The music was good, and everybody was just having a good. It was so different for like Archaeos and Bonkers, and it was a different kind of thingy. But so is that the kind of thing like you're kind of meaning like it was
a much more relaxed atmosphere. And what happened, because like, I mean, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm not aggressive. I don't claim to be the hardest guy, but because I was quite polite and I've always treated people the way I'd like them to treat me. He said, well, also there was a lot of guys that owned clubs. There was Mike Calder that had the Cotton Club. There was Michael Maudlin that had the Warehouse and the Mardi Gras. There was a lot of other ones, see me on the door and go, hey, you're quite polite. Do you want to work here? All of a sudden, for getting a $5 a night, I'm getting like 20 quid a night. And I've got the Dickie Bow and all that on. And in those days, this is years before you had SIA security and all that, you know what I mean? And it got a bit, but so started working in the clubs, and obviously that's when the sort of heavier drugs come in. But to me, when I was working in the Students' Union, it was a bit of speed to keep you going to 3 o'clock in the morning. And then what would happen is when I started working the big boy discos like the Cotton Club and the Warehouse and the Mardi Gras, I'm meeting different people. Now, I was like, Mardi Gras was the top club in Glasgow, and that was where all the footballers did. Now, I worked there. People, all these wee trolls and that come on and say, he's talking shite and all that. Look, I can't change. I was on the Mardi Gras for the opening night. You know what I mean? I'll show you tickets, not because I ended up hiring the place and running it. You know what I mean? So can you make this stuff up? I just haven't talked about it before because my mum was alive up until recently. Unfortunately, lost her, and she would have battered me. This story came out, it would have been a scandal. What will the neighbours think? So the story's always been out there. I've just never felt the need to tell it. So the drugs then, when I started working proper things, used to get all the top level guys, some people would call them gangsters or faces or whatever. They come up. Now, they're not interested whether it costs a £5 or 50 quid to get in. They just want the kudos of coming to the front. So if I'm like, oh, Sean or Paul there, how you doing? And you're with the girlfriend. And I'm like, come up to the front. You're like, there you go. And it'd be 20 quid wrapped up in my hand. Or about the second night, I thought, what's that? It's a bit thing, mate. I went to the toilet, looked, I wonder if that's a 50 quid. And I'm like, envelope. And I'm like, that's no speed. And I've taken it to my mate who's a bit older, because I'm only 17 still, you know what I mean? Mate's like, yeah. Of course it's really good gear, because it's the guy that's bringing it into the country. He's just gave it to me, and he's getting like that. So what happened was, instead of getting like a £5 in ex Students' Union, I'm suddenly getting 20 quid. This guy's giving me a rap that my mate is, we've had a line out, highest kites, and he's sold it to somebody for 60 quid. So I'm suddenly now getting about 70 or 80 quid a night. Now, this is 1980. God, that's a hell of a lot of money. And then what happened was, fortunate or not, we decided that we're on the door and we're putting our life in. Glasgow in those days, there was shooters, there was knives, there was that, and there wasn't any of this. You had to be able to look after yourself, right? There's no two
How
ways
did you get through that, Alan? Was it more like, did you come across some people that weren't very good to handle? Or
there was a lot of people, but fortunately, because I never annoyed anybody else, and I treat people the way I treated a lot of the guys, and particularly because I was very young. So fucking you know what I mean? If you get any bother, you fucking tell them, you're sorry for swearing, but you know me, you know what I mean? Because I'm being polite to you, and if you then see me getting, harassed by somebody and you're a well-known player, you'll say, hey, that boy's all right, leave him alone. And that was
start
just
getting that bit of respect.
But not because I'm comporting myself in a reasonable manner. If I see you doing something that you shouldn't be doing, I'll say, Sean, do us a favour, do that in here. And that's it. You know what I mean? A bit of respect to you. You reciprocate that, and obviously that grows. And what happened then was, we decided that, I'd always been running the Students' Union, made fortunes for them, putting on bands and events. And we're like, we're still potless here. Why don't we put on an event? That's all right. So ended up, we were doing the Sunday night in the Mardi Gras. Now, again, the universe must have been looking. We booked the thing weeks in advance. So we didn't even look at the date. Just, there's nothing on in the Sunday night in the Mardi Gras, because the same guy owns the warehouse, and the warehouse is the busiest night in Glasgow on a Sunday. So he just booked it 3 weeks in advance, because there was a wedding and a funeral or whatever in between. Turns out it was Easter Sunday. So it's mobbed. We had all our pals going out, and I've always been good at marketing it, and so we had the lassies going out, with all the glam things, going out and giving out tickets, and they get 50 pence for every ticket to come back in, but you get half price. You come in before 9 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock, the place is stowed. And we're letting people out and back in. And it was like a £5 a ticket. And there's 1,000 people. Do the maths. They're about 18, 19-year-olds. Mental. You know what I mean? Just like, we're doing this all the time. And then we took over. We knew, people said, oh, you ought to do more nights. But we get not too big for our station. We didn't annoy people. We didn't take on another night in Glasgow, because that would have started to annoy people. So we were like, we'll go to Edinburgh. A good idea. That'd be great. And we took a place called the Electric Circus. I think it's still going. We did the Monday night there, because we can't annoy him because nobody's there. And we're going to do that. And then people go, we want to come through and support you. And it ended up we were doing buses through to Edinburgh. And this is 1980s. This is 10 years before raves.
Before the rave. That's what I was going to say. Before
we
the
were
raves,
running, I can't even remember. I said parts of Hamilton in the interview, but the more I think about it, I think it must have been Stagecoach, because one of the things we did, again, we flipped on it, and it was a party thing. Stagecoach had the bit at the back where you sat downstairs. We had people wanting to book that, so we ended up charging them 50 quid, and that was the VIP room and all that. You'd stop at Hamilton services and all the way through to Edinburgh, and it became that much of a thing. People would actually come through for Edinburgh on the train to go on the bus back to Edinburgh at like 5 o'clock at night. To spend 4 hours on the bus going through there. And that was chaos. And then we did the same thing.
What kind of music? Was it like just
the 80s normal music, dance music, just whatever DJ would come on. Look, I couldn't have cared what the music was. We were just fucking there for, you just half our heads, you know what I mean? I mean, the craziness, I remember the boy that did it was, he was about a year older than me. We were both students and all that at the time. And he's walked into, now, bearing in mind we get paid, ticket money, so you get fivers and pounds and all that. And he's walked in, and I'll never forget the registration, this number. Saab Turbo was the big thing, I've been wanting the Saab Turbo, and he was for the Borders, and he wanted, the racing green and all that. And he walked in, can I get a shot of that? The guys are like, Arnold Clark or whatever motor company going, 19-year-old, we're scruffy's then, what I mean? No way. Opened this bag. The guy's like, you can test drive it. And he bought the motor there and then, just with the door money. I'll never forget it. The Reggie number, how's this for memory? KGB 747, because it was like a personalised Reggie. And it's like mental, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, all things must come to an end, because we hadn't thought about taxes and VAT. And you could twist it and say that the owners grassed this. No, they didn't grass this. What happened was, after a period of time, the customs and excise come in, and if you're running a disco, they know that, well, you've got your door money on Saturday, so there's 10 grand door money. Sunday, what do you do? Oh, we do private functions. Now, at the same time, they can see the booze that's consumed. A birthday party, you get 100 or 200 people, so they know. Or a hen night, 100 or 200 people. Every Sunday night is actually busier, more drinking than your Saturday night. So what's going on there? Where's the door money? You can't say we're letting people in for none. So they found out it was us. Now, I try and be as honest as possible. Now, I don't know to this day, I've never heard them. But we get a nod, or maybe it was just somebody wanting us out. He said, the taxman's coming after you and all that. And at that point, all the people I knew, this is 84 or something like that, 85, were all coming over, and it was all the yuppie kids. It wasn't their money, it was daddy's money. They're all going a bit Marbella, and Boys for the Black stuff, and that was on the telly, and they're going a bit Marbella, Portabanus and that, and it's pissing raining in Glasgow, and you're hearing all these stories, and we get told to go out. So I'd fired down to London. I had a friend I knew that was at Chelsea Art College, and she was introducing me, like, they're all down there, they're all yuppies and that, but they've not got a pot to piss in. I'm there with all these Rupert and Hooray Henrys, who are like, this is halfway through term, so the 10 grand daddy's giving them, is blowing. And they're all like going to tramps with the hanging Stringfellows and that. They're all getting for none, but they've not got a penny to their name. They're like a glass of water and 5 straws, and I've got bags full of cash. I'm like most popular guy there. I'll go there. And I think I'm still only I just turned 21.
And is this you kicking about London, Stringfellows and all that?
And only for a week or two, and then I'm over to Spain. And what I did was I knew I had to get, I thought I had to go out of the country. So I went, they had a thing called bucket shops, which you wouldn't know. Before the internet and cheap flights, they had Oxford Street or Regent Street. They just saw these old fucking shops, horrible little shops where they sold flights. You just go in and you say, like, I'm wanting a flight, whatever. And the lassie's like, where do you want to go? No, just anywhere out of the country. Well, I bet America, I'm like, 10 hours in a flight. I've never, man, is that Ibiza? Where's that? It's an island. No. Then said, like, Malaga. And I'm, where the hell's Malaga? I'd been to, like, Benidorm and Lorette and all that with my mum and dad, but never Malaga. She said, it's Portabanus, Marbella. I went, all right, that's it. So I've flown over there, bags full of cash and all that, but this is 85 or something like that, whatever, 84, and just arrived there. And Malaga's nothing then, it's just a port. And I gradually worked my way down the coast and meeting people and all that. And then it was running bars and stuff like that. And
what was it like? So see, when you first went, was it no the way like you would see Marbella the new, or? Oh,
it was the Costa del Crime. Then. It was all the top people that you read about in the newspapers, all then were over there. Like Freddie Foreman's, Ronnie Knights and all that. But they were all gentlemen. Right. What we were talking about the now.
And was that genuinely just to do with the extradition thing at that time?
Spain didn't have any extradition. That had just started to come in when I get nicked. But at that point, they didn't have it. I was funny. I'll come back to that because we'll do this sequence. So I went over there, and what had happened is I had plenty of money in that, but you get even an alcoholic, drug addict gets bored just sitting about all day getting drunk. You have to have something to get up for, you know what I mean? So I'd mates that had bars and that, and I'd get into working with them, and we were running beach parties and all that. Now, our beach parties was chaos. Now, people nowadays couldn't even fathom what went on. This is a Roman orgy every Thursday on the beach.
Aye.
Because I don't know if they still do them. Club 18 at 30 holidays.
I
Right,
well,
that
I went
was-
on one.
That was in its heyday then.
Aye.
So we had 1,000 people that would come over to do the Club 18 at 30 holidays in Torremolinos. They would all book on our beach party on the Thursday, but they'd be there for a fortnight. But in between the following Thursday, we'd have 20s holidays, which was the competition.
Aye.
But we'd also have all the tourists that wanted to go, so we could have beach parties with 5,000 people. Now, this is before raves and not. People used to pay 3,500 pesetas, I think it was about £17.50, £20 back
Aye.
in those days. Now, people go, how can you afford to do that? Well, it cost it cost 300 pesetas, £1.50 for a bottle of vodka.
Aye.
So you'd need to drink 20 bottles of vodka today as a damage, you know what I mean?
Aye.
It just didn't, you know what I mean?
Aye.
It didn't bear thinking about.
Aye.
And this was just chaos. There's just carnage on the beach, you know. It'd take a fortnight for them to clear the beach. It'd be people would find that you wouldn't see for 3 days and all that, you know what I mean? And I've seen things where people's parents have taken a tour company because their daughter or son has kissed somebody behind the bike sheds.
Aye.
Thank God there was no video phones and stuff like
Aye,
that photographed,
mental.
because we'd still be in the jail now, you know. But what was happening through them, you're meeting a different level of people. And I was meeting guys in the pub that come on, you know, the typical Glaswegian. I'm 6 foot and the guy's 5'7", the older guy going, all right, wee man, I didn't know you were over here. Oh, brilliant. You know, and like, you couldn't get his, you know what I mean?
Aye.
You couldn't hire us a motor, could you? Because we can't really, we can't hire you a motor, don't. But my pal's got a motor, you can use that. We'll give you £500 for it for a couple of days. Or this boy's, he's over here for a holiday, extended, you know what I mean? He can't book into a hotel, you know what I mean?
Aye.
Oh, my mate's mum and dad are away for 6 months. Oh, can we use that off the grid? You know what I mean?
Aye.
Can you
Aye, so
change
you
up money?
Your networking's starting to get a bit bigger.
And it's not doing anything to
Aye.
what you see. You know how the phrase in recovery is the unacceptable suddenly becomes the acceptable.
Aye.
It's the same guys you met in Glasgow. Now, I remember trying to explain to my partner, my ex-partner, my soulmate, but she wasn't brought up the same way as me. She was for a quiet background. And wasn't naive or anything like that, but she's like that. We'd gone to a party, and there's a guy with a ton of cocaine in the back garden, and she's like, you know what I mean? I'm like, to me, it's not my gear. I'm not selling it. But to me, that just doesn't seem an unusual situation.
Aye.
Because if you think about it, when you were 13, you went to a party and you seen one of the older boys smoking a joint, and you thought, that's mental.
Aye.
Then when you're maybe about 17 or 18, you go to a party and it's a guy that's a local face,
Aye.
and he's got an ounce or something like that. And you think, at what point do you decide, well, I'm not going in that house because, you know, that's illegal?
I think it,
You know what I mean? It's just a progression.
Aye, but I think you get people, Alan, that probably they choose, I'm not going back into that house again. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Like you'll get but most people in housing schemes and stuff will go back.
Aye.
But you will get the odd person that will go, oh fuck, that's no, I'm not wanting that to become acceptable. Do you know what I mean? But I think most of the people, and what you're saying, you sound like a character that was like it was becoming acceptable anyway. Do you know what I mean?
But the thing is, you know, if I hadn't moved out of Barrhead,
Aye.
I would have still, to me, I might have seen somebody at a party once in a blue moon smoking a joint.
Aye.
You know what I mean? I haven't changed. I'm just going to different parties. It's not me that's changed. I've not changed my morals or my thingies.
Aye, of course.
But if you're sitting, put it this way, if I'm going to a house party in Barrhead, there might be somebody there with a couple of grams or something. They go to somebody's villa in Spain, there's a chance it might be a wee bit more than that. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that I'm suddenly doing anything. And I said this before when somebody said, oh, you were a drug dealer and all that. And I'm like, well, look, the way I'm not trying to, because I knew what I was doing and I knew what things, but my sort of justification and how I would say it was like, if you were looking to buy a car and Paul there was selling a car, and I said, oh, right, hold on, I'll give you his number. I checked with him first, it was all right. And later on, you might say, oh, that was brilliant. take you out for a pint, or there's a £5 for helping us out, right? But if you didn't do that, and you ask next week, I'm not going to give you, you know what I mean? But I want to tell him, doesn't he say thanks or whatever? But my justification later on would be to say, well, look, because I helped you get a motor, and I helped him get a motor, does that mean I'm Allan Clark all of a sudden, that I'm a car dealer? Because I don't deal in cars. I just have done you a favour, and obviously you've helped me back out. I know what you're doing, but that's the way my
I know
conscience tries to clear it. You know what I mean? I'm not actually going out in the street and selling that to people.
No, and I think that's like, listen, it is what it's like. We just, when you come from an impoverished background, or even and you don't even know you're impoverished, then you start going to like Marbella and you start seeing like real big houses, but you start kind of like, that lifestyle's hard to kind of say no to, and it's easy for people to say, oh, you're a drug dealer, you're this or that, but it's until you're in that position, and it's like you says earlier, it's when the abnormal becomes the normal, and that's what happens in prison. Prison, I always say, like, is a flip of society. It's like everything that's...
No, I mean, I was listening to a couple of your podcasts recently in the gym, because it's good. I can put on, they've got YouTube on the treadmill, so I can put on and hearing all the different ones with yourself and Chris that we were talking about, and Jim King and things like that. We listening to the podcast and what you were saying about the trauma and that in the gym, and what you were saying about the like that. I mean, I've always been quite sensitive and all, because I was a wee fat kid that got bullied, and so I hate bullies and stuff like that. And I'm not one of these guys that's going to go out and start fights for the sake of it. But what I'd explain to some people when they talk about trauma, like in my day and age, they didn't talk about trauma. You know what I mean? Even Amy said, you know, you get, oh, this happened. You get another slap for mentioning it, you know what I mean? So just the touchy-feely stuff didn't get brought up, you know what I mean? You get twice as bad at home. And I'll be honest though, when I was in the jail, my mum and dad, for 6.5 years, never knew where I was. I was more scared of my mum than I was the Spanish police and all that, you know what I mean? To my mum. And what you're talking about, things that happen in the jail, and I remember going in now, I've never been violent or anything like that. There's nobody who'll turn and say that I cause fights. No, my job is to stop them, not to cause them. But I'd see things in there, and you don't become a bad person, but what you do is desensitize.
Definitely.
Because I remember I talked about this to somebody else recently, and it must have been, there was an old Swiss guy that was in, because he was one of the few people who was, he had his own yacht full of hash as usual. And it had to be him, because it was right within the first few days that I was in, and nobody else spoke English, so I'm surmising it must have been him. And I remember I had never seen anybody taking heroin before. Now, and that's God's honest truth, until I was in the Spanish jail. I'd never seen it in Glasgow, because the crowd that I hung about with, they had acid occasionally, but then it was just people doing Charlie and drinking. That's what it was. You know, there wasn't any designer drugs. Ecstasy hadn't come in at that point. That was later on. So it was people doing Charlie and drinking. That was it. And I'm in there now. When I got caught, it was the mid-80s. So the whole AIDS epidemic had just come in Spain. And we were just seeing that just as we were about to get banged up, you know. And it was all this stigma that you wouldn't touch somebody's glass and all that, because you didn't know what the AIDS and this, the virus and HIV and all that. People were like, oh, you can't touch that. So even in the prison, the doctors wouldn't help people out, you know. And if they thought it was bad outside, it's a million times worse. There was people in the prisons that I was in that were going in for like a 3-month sentence, and they weren't coming out because it was like the perfect storm in the jail, because the average Spaniard in those days couldn't read and write, so there's no internet, you're getting no knowledge. These kids were coming in saying about trauma, you know, they were turning to drugs to block things out. You know what I mean? Murcia, where I was originally, wasn't a tourist resort. You know what I mean? These are all kids that have got they were in for petty things. You know, and
is there a lot of poverty in Spain now?
At that point, what had happened is we were based on the Costa del Crime, as it was there in Marbella, Torremolinos, Fungirola, that area. But where I actually got caught, I got caught in a car with a load of gear in it. in Murcia, which in that point Murcia was a farming area. You know, it was totally the back and beyond. You go from Murcia, and we were about an hour short of Alicante when we get caught. You know, and Alicante's like Benidorm and that, so make up your own conclusions what we were doing. We were just unfortunately caught there. So when I went in, it wasn't like, if I'd been caught in Malaga, being in a jail full of Brits and all that, you know what I mean, with all in French, you know, I'm up there and I was the only one that spoke English for long periods of time, and it was an eye-opener. But it was like...
Because I'm not thinking that way, because if you'd go to jail up beside the Costa del, you'd have been in with all the British boys and that, but obviously you've got the jail in a kind of rural area where it's like...
It was all, like, most of them were, like, in for nonsense.
Like kind of Berlin of, like, Spain kind of thing.
But the ones that... Then there was the elite, because it was, what did you do? Because a lot of people were moving up the coast to get away, so they were, instead of taking the short route over from Morocco, they were going a bit further up the coast, and their boats are coming in there. So, like, the guys that were in with me were all in for, like, tons and stuff like that. You know, you were either there for robbing milk, or it was the kind of elite were on a different, you know, level, you know what I mean? And it was what it was, but...
What was... I'll ask everybody this that goes into prison, Alan, right? And obviously, like, what was your feelings like when you were gonna... So obviously, how did that come about? How did that come about?
We were basically driving up with some stuff in the car, and we get pulled at a roadblock. Now, my one resentment was they didn't actually catch us, you know what I mean? They faked the stuff, but we did it, you know what I mean? Got to admit that. But back in the 80s, there wasn't even a drug law in Spain. If you go back historically, Chris Tinpale McPherson, he's into all that. There wasn't even a drug law in Spain in that point. You get done by against the public health.
Right.
It was only when Spain wanted to become part of Europe later on in the 80s and the early 90s that they brought in, like, drugs laws. And they weren't bothered about drugs. You'd go into bars and that, smoke hash and that in Spain in the 80s. They weren't really too bothered, because all the Costa del Crime boys were bringing money in. Now, those guys, the top level guys doing the Marbella and that, the Spanish loved them because they brought money in. They were spending the money in the country. They weren't taking it out. And they weren't causing it. It's not like Marbella now where it's like the Wild West. Look, those guys never caused any trouble because they didn't want to go back. So they were actually stopping trouble. If one of those faces was in your pub, there wouldn't be any trouble because nobody would cause trouble if those names were in the pub.
Kind of the way Dubai is, don't they?
So that would be... So they weren't on the lookout for drugs, but what was bad then was the Basque separatists. ETA. Right? Now that was rife. They were blowing up post offices and police offices and whatever all the time. So they were on the lookout for explosives all the time. So we basically caught in a roadblock. We were driving up and you could see the roadblock coming, and they were filtering like every third or fourth car into a lane, and you turn round into a wee parking space. So we were getting filtered in, and even then it's still not that bad. The guy that was driving, he's like, oh, no, get this out. So as we're turning the blind bit, when we've turned round, the stuff's no longer in the motor. So they've got us there and they've looked in. There's just 2 years and there's nothing in the motor. On you go. And at that point, there's a blinking lorry driver passes. And I didn't speak Spanish at that point. He's like, blah, 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 and I can just see the driver going. So he said, I've just seen these guys throwing like bags of stuff at the motor when you can see them. So they've went, hallelujah. You know, the next thing, it's just like, it's out of a film. Now, I can't make this stuff up. Because you can go in the Spanish newspapers and see it. You know, people think, you're telling a story. If I wanted to tell a story, I would have glamorised this 30 odd years ago. This is, it came out again last year, 2 years ago, in 23 million newspapers. On all the court transcripts and all that. So I'm not making up. People want to troll me and all that. Please just go and look behind the story first before you make any comments. I'm not making a coin out of this, you know, or anything. So the next thing we know, it's like the Wild West because they hadn't got anything like this before. And it's like there's the blue police, which is like the city police. You've got the National Guard, which are the brown, and then you've got the black, which is the paramilitary, the Guardia Civil. There's Land Rovers, there's Jeeps, there's Sigmy, there's like hundreds of people around us. You know, they're all taking photos. But what they haven't done is nobody's remember to ask that lorry driver for his details.
Aye.
So that's come up to the trial, and somebody said they seen it. So that was my only qualm. They faked the evidence.
How
but
much was it? How much
it
stuff?
was a lot less. When we went to trial, which was part of the course, it's no only me. They done us probably a favour. When we went to trial, we got tried for 10k.
Aye.
Now, I can assure you, I know what a 10k looks like, you know what I mean? I'm throwing bags out of this car. I'll not say how much was there, but there was more than 10k. But
Aye.
obviously that got distributed wherever it went. And the crazy thing was, the whole time that we were there, I had a bit of personal underneath my seat,
Aye.
the white stuff. And I swear to God, for the whole time I was in, kept coming up to trials, and I kept thinking, they've got this habit of dropping things on you. Now, my co-accused, even though he was older and he was driving, you think he would be the one that was getting...
Aye.
He got out on bail and all that because he'd a Spanish girlfriend, and he was like... and he'd a checkable work history and all that.
Aye.
And you know what I mean?
Aye.
I wasn't very popular with them, you know what I mean? They couldn't prove, but they didn't make it easy. So the whole time he's out, and then as we do, because we'd lost money on that, he decided to double down. And while I'm in, he's got nicked again. And I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, you know what I mean? I just like didn't
Aye.
want to know after that. But I didn't even tell him there was a stuff underneath the seat,
Aye.
like half of the white.
Aye.
And that sat there. Now, that car was 3 years impound it, 4 years impound it, get put back out. And as I'm being deported in 1992, years later, I went into the wee car place, except nothing else today. You've got 72 hours to get out of Spain. You know, I go back to Tornley, and like that. See the wee guy at the car place, I'm not popular with him, you know, his car's been impounded, lost all that. Oh, Jose, by this time now I can speak fluent Spanish. Oh, mate, how you doing? See, like, and the thing was playing in my head, that's never come up, because I kept thinking I'm going for my appeal.
Aye.
It's going to come up plus that, and instead of 6.5 years, it's going to be 16 years, and I kept thinking I was going to pull this out.
Aye.
And he went, oh, no, so what happened to that motor? And he said, oh, I got it back. I lost 3 years'
Aye.
earnings, and I got it back. And I'm like, yay! So I went there, I sold it, and I went, he said, but I sold it to, you know, Jimmy the Butcher. Aye, in Spanish, love an excuse to get away for a skive. He's like, he's just doing, why go for a coffee? He means, will you buy me a brandy?
Aye. Aye.
He's like, he's doing, and he's like, what is it anyway? I says, oh, I lost my Ray-Bans in the motor. I said, he's like, aye, you never know.
Aye.
I'm like that underneath that. Now, no phones or that, no Heimies. Now, I was meeting a pal for Glasgow or Scotland up there. That was his stuff.
Aye.
We were going for a party that night. And it's like, well, we're going up with this stuff. You might as well get hung for a lamb as a sheep. There's no point in you carrying it. I'll stick
Aye,
it
aye.
under, you know, I mean, carry that, you know, but nobody else knew.
Aye.
So I've managed to track this guy down, and it took me 48 hours to get from, I was in Santander when I got released, and I've come all the way down in a train, all the way down to Tornley to fly out of Malaga. And I've tried to, and it's like the time's clocking down. Eventually, and it's like, oh, Sean drinks in that pub on a Monday. Oh, but he drinks in that one on a Tuesday, or he drinks in that one. So I'm going all the way around my bit. Eventually finds this guy, and like, I've got something for you. Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. I thought you'd have grassed me up years ago, and I've been living in. I said, I've got this. And the guy's like, I can't believe I'm giving him his stuff back.
Aye.
He's like, you are off your head. You know, there's honesty in the stupidity. You know,
Aye.
you've no grassed me up for all that time, and you're trying to give me the stuff back. It's yours. You know what I
Aye.
mean? And then I'm going, but I'm flying in about 8 hours or something now, so like, it's no happening. He's like, when was it you get nicked anyway? Because obviously he's no setting. And he's like, oh, Christ, we've had shite stuff for the last 3 or 4 years. That's mint it. You know what I mean? So obviously we've had a wee bit, and he's wanting to give me money to help me out because I can't take it back. And he's like, I can't, you know what I mean? I've not even got a passport or anything. I'm
Aye.
going on to a flight. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought I was going to get a flight, and I'd get strip search and that when I get back and problems. I've not got a passport. I've got a deportation
Aye.
order, which I'll show you. And he's like, I'll give you the money, you know. And we were talking about my mom's house. That's what paid the deposit. He's
Aye.
phoned my mom about 3 weeks later. He said, didn't know where it'd be or whatever. And it's like, I'm hearing this Emmerdale or Coronation Street's on. Aye, my son's called Allan and all that. And what you might know for? And I'm like, well, there's no doubt. my mates there, meet him in, like in the town centre, and gave us a wee envelope, for. But then what happened after that when I came out of the thing, I didn't know. I've flown, I've got the train 72 hours, but changed about 3 times down for Santander, all under my own steam. I've walked into Malaga Airport and went like, there's my ticket. I had to pick up my tickets because my mod bought the flight. The next thing I know, I've got Guardia Civil around me, machine guns and that. And I'm like, missed the flight I was meant to be on. Absolute chaos in the room. They've taken, I knew I was going to get IB, so I'm not getting. I've got my wee guitar with me and songbooks and that. But they've taken watches and all the rest of the money and the duty-free fags and whatever. And the crazy thing was, I'm getting on, I'd missed my own flight by about half an hour. So my mom's probably got like the equivalent of Ryanair, right? But what I didn't realise is they put me on the next available flight. Now, they've been held back, so I've walked on, and it's like mental. It's like going up sideways in a conga, because I'm arms and legs with 2 Guardia Civil, going up sideways. They've plonked us, we've got to sit down in the 3 front seats, and everybody's like that, slow hand clap kind of thing. And they've then got to stand up. The pilot's got to come in and sign that I'm not going to get off the plane until we arrive in Glasgow. Where the hell am I going to go in mid-air? You know what I mean? Get up and go for the toilet and take a parachute or something. And I've not got a pot to piss in. The wee hostess comes over and says to me, "Oh, you all right, son?" And I'm like, "He's got a coffee." She says, "Oh, you're on British Airways." She says, "Everything's free." And I'm like, "Thank you, Lord." He's a large jack and keep them coming. And I was feeling no pain when I got to Glasgow. And the amazing thing was, there must be something about the scheduled flights as opposed to charter, because like I was meant to get the 12 o'clock flight, instead I got to say I got the 12:30. But the British Airways flight actually landed earlier than the flight it was meant to be on.
Maybe
A better landing slot or something like that, because my mum and dad didn't know, and I've walked out of Glasgow Airport thinking I'm going to be days there. And they must have just thought, well, nobody's going to be that stupid. He's not got a passport. He's just got a jail deportation. What is he going to be bringing back? So they just waved me right through. And I'm like, I kept thinking they were going to jump me as the screens were open. Next thing I know, I'm in the arrivals lounge at Glasgow Airport and getting handed my nephew's 6-month-old baby in my hands. And I'm like,
this is crazy.
This is mental, aye.
So what? See, I'll take you obviously back to like the kind of, when did you? So see, when you were in jail, right? Obviously, what was it like when you first walk in? Because obviously, I always talk about it. To me, I was only 19 when I went into Pullman, and I always talk about how it's terrifying. It's terrifying when you walk in. You just don't know what you're going into. What was it like? Obviously, it'd been a bit different than that in Spain. What was it like?
Right, the thing.
Because you hadn't been in jail in Scotland before.
No, never. Never even been in a police cell. Hardly or anything like that. But what was the sort of thing? I only found this out last year because obviously paperwork and that was getting missing. You don't remember, because you arrive in a haze and, it's a foreign language for the first 6 months and you speak in. So piecing things together to the best of our knowledge now, I was asked to go back and play in the concert in the jail, which is going to still happen at some point. So I've been talking with all the guards and the functionaries. They were up at my house last year in Spain and all that, and getting a timeline. Now, what happened was from when I got caught till when I got to the actual prison, in those days, Spain isn't in the common market. Right? There's no Spain. Between 1980s and 1990s, Chris McPherson will do this, was a thing called the Helsinki Report by Amnesty International come in. Now, Spain's prisons were classed as the worst in the world because they just did what they want. Franco had just left power. Franco was like Hitler's mate. So they were shooting people and that, the conditions were ridiculous, and there was no, if they wanted to do something, you did it. So what we found out was there was a gap of, the best they can do is roughly 18 days, where I was like in a kind of holding cell type thing. Now, holding cell sounds quite glamorous. This is like the dungeons in Edinburgh Castle. I'm not making this up. I don't even make it up. Like, it is what it is. I didn't have the choice. It wasn't that I elected to do it. It's just the way it was. If you can imagine, I'm in a little Spanish village in the mountains. So you go into the thing at street level. The cell is, I'm looking 30 foot up to floor level on the street, and that's the grate that's my window. So I'm down. Now that thing's hundreds of years old, so it's not even cobblestones. The cobblestones are broke, so anytime you move, it's dust everywhere. The bit on that is 3 walls all damp. It's summer,
Horrible.
but 30 foot down, it's damp, it's cold, it's freezing. That bit is bars, just old, like, you know, like Edinburgh Castle.
Aye.
And there's guard dogs out there. Now, those guard dogs are horrible. They're mangy, like Alsatian, German Shepherd, things that are skeletal. Right? Now, they're getting fed, like, big silver bowls of, like, gruel kind of thing. With bits of shite in them.
That same as
Sorry
you
for the
are
language.
getting.
And that's what they're putting into me. And obviously, I wasn't eating that. The water in that is the dog's water. And you just see it. You know, the guys would come in and pee in it, you know, just to annoy you. And now, I wasn't helping things because I've got the chip in my shoulder. Even though there's nobody there, there's our self-destroy mechanism. Like, yeah, ticket, you know, I think I'm a wido. So the only thing they understand and I can say is F off and stuff like that. So that doesn't make me popular. And obviously, I thought my co-accused, or the guy that got copies, something that I didn't realise he went straight to the prison because he's got a lawyer and his birds are, you know, well known in Spain. But I'm the wee Glasgow yaff, and they're thinking, well, we'll make him talk. So I was getting slapped about, you know. I was black and blue, you know, and I wasn't helping it because as much as they were doing it, I was aggravating them, you know, and throwing food back at them and all that. So you were talking about I couldn't speak the language, and we weren't brought up seeing prison things. I didn't know what a prison looked like. You know, we didn't even have Prisoner Cell Block H. I think I'd seen Escape from Alcatraz and Midnight Express I'd seen.
So was it obviously like you're thinking in your head it's going to be something like Midnight Express, and probably it was. I take it.
It was because I mean I was getting battered. Now I hadn't eaten properly, sleep deprivation. I hadn't seen because there's no lights. The lights is coming from up street level and all that. So, but even though you don't speak the language, people can gesticulate and tell you. And they're busy explaining to me that I'm going to get a boyfriend who's going to look after me when I go to the big jail. That's getting put in my head every day. Now, what I didn't know, and it's very, very fortunate for me, I've had a couple of occasions when I've moved prisons where, for the grace of God or universe, I'd be dead. You know, and it's not because I'm a hard guy, it's just I was very lucky. So I've got eyes like plates because I haven't seen daylight. I've no eaten and all that, and I'm getting told that these guys are going to try and gang rape me or something in my head. So I'm like, back then, when my beard grew, and it's 18 days, so it's away out there, it went red. So I'm looking like something out of Braveheart, you know what I mean? With the big red beard, eyes like that. So I'm looking like a lunatic. Now, what I didn't know is the guy that become my best mate, a French guy, he is the nephew from the family that's in the French Connection film. Now, this boy is tier 1. Right. He's heard that, you know, there's another European come in for hash and all that, so he's like looking out for us. Now, he's got this boy Joel, who's about 6'2", but he's skinny at that point, but he ended up being a bulkier guy, just... But he's got a Moroccan guy that is this guy High, who's like a man mount. He's about 7 foot and 7 foot broad. He's just like, he's never worked out in his life. He's just a big guy, and that's his boy that runs and gets his tea. So he said, "Go and get that boy that's coming on." So he's walked over with a coffee and a packet of fags, right? I'm not making this up to glamorise me or anything because the guy I got was a sucker punch. He's come in, I just seen this face coming. I've just smacked him, right? The guy's got a coffee in one hand and fags in the other. He's not got a day in. So I've cut out his eye and all that. And, you know, obviously he's been told to look after me. So he can't do nothing. But it used to be so funny years afterwards because we'd be sitting the 3 of us, you know, and they've got the 2 of them. And you see this guy with this big scar and they go, "Who did that to you?" And I'm sitting there pointing to me and they go, "You did that, haven't it?" It's like, but you don't need to explain the story, but it was like, oh, Jesus. He would have leathered me, he would have battered me around, but I was lucky because they've looked after us. But that's the kind of funny things. But about 2 or 3 days after that, I got stabbed in the queue. Still got the scar. And that wasn't well.
But was that just for being British? Or?
Aye, but it was for holding your ground because there was a lot. Now, I've got to make this clear. I've got a lot of folk that are travellers and gypsies. And when I say gypsies or gitanos, I'm not talking about Romanies. There's a subculture of people that call themselves gyppos in the Spanish jails that are not Romani, are not travellers. It's just their wee gang. Now, they are honestly the scum of the earth. They're great. They prey on all the weak. They'll go and gang rape wee boys. They'll steal money off people that are alone. They'll act to take it in a group. 1-on-1, they'll not go near you. And this one of the guys, I didn't know who it was, come up to me in the coffee, just seemed to and started budging. Now, I've not even thought it, I'm not a hard man and all that. Just automatic, you just go like, somebody standing in front of me in Central Station nudges me, you just go, what? You know what I mean?
Aye.
You're not wanting to start a fight, it's just
Aye.
the way you just react. This never thought in what. So this guy's obviously got aggrieved at that. And a couple of days later, I'm standing in the queue to get my coffee because I discovered that the boy in the coffee shop's American. So I'll go up and talk to him because it's the only time I get to speak English. You know what I mean?
Aye.
I'll go and get the coffees, guys, and I'll talk to this
Aye.
wee guy, Manny. He's an American. He's in for like tons of coke and that. I get me chatting because I've not spoke English at all. And although the other guy's French and, you know what I mean, a bit of
Is it
English.
all different? Like, because obviously I can imagine in Spain, because it just the kind of place it was there must have been like Colombians.
Aye.
And
Colombians come in later.
aye,
They
aye.
feature in the story later on. But at this point in time, there was Joel and he had 2 drivers. He got caught with 2 articulated.
Is that the Corsicans? Is that the not?
It was Marseille Mafia.
Marseille, right?
Aye. His uncle is the guy, I think it's Fernando Del Rey, portrays in it. That
Aye.
was Joel's uncle.
Aye,
Right.
right.
No, so it's like, and he was like, if you remember, it's probably long before your time, Smokey and the Bandit films.
I know of it, but aye.
Smokey, that was Burt Reynolds, used to drive like the Trans Am or the posh sports car, and then the truck would come with the material afterwards. So Joel was driving like the Ferrari, right? And you get the 2 Arctics behind him, right?
Aye.
And they all get caught. Well, one of his drivers ended up, he was my drummer,
Aye.
you know what I mean, in the band when we started the wee band. But me and Joel got on great. And he was just like one of those guys that, you know, straight.
Just, aye, nice
You know
guy.
what I mean?
Aye.
He could still be in the jail, you know, because I call him Joel, but that's not his real name,
Aye.
because he wouldn't tell his drivers, they get out while I was there.
Aye.
They get like about 3 or 4 years. But he would rather stay in Spain till the day he died than give his right name,
Aye.
because what would face him in France would be a lot worse, not just for the prison thing, but you know, we're talking about rival factions
Aye,
in
aye,
jails
aye.
and all that.
Aye.
You know what I mean?
Aye.
He could go to a jail that his family wasn't quoted in,
Aye.
and it wouldn't work out well.
Aye.
So it suited him better. He just went under the name of Joel de l'Église,
Aye.
because Iglesias Church, and when they asked him his name, he seen the church sign in the background, just went John Church. Now, they can't do you any more,
Aye.
but it meant that they couldn't deport him or whatever. And as far as deportation, I'm jumping from side to side, deportation and stuff like that. To give you an idea of how bad it was, the first thing MD for anywhere in Europe, even the Moroccans wanted to get deported back to Morocco, right?
For the after the jail.
Aye, from Spain.
Aye.
Look,
Was there any other Scottish people there in the jail?
No.
No.
no, not in the whole time. It was no other Scottish.
Was it
people. There was no
different?
other
See
English.
the one that we're taught. See if you were got up in the jail up in the Costa del Crime, was that a totally different
Aye.
kind of jail? Aye.
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 That is more modern, and there'd be lots of English
Aye.
and stuff like that, just because of the nature of it. And it'd be people in for bank fraud and card checking
Aye.
and touristy things.
And
but-
just obviously probably just because of the British connection and
Aye, because on the Costa del
put a wee
Crime,
bit more.
there's
Aye,
tourists
aye,
and all
right, I
that.
get it. Aye.
and you would get people that spoke English
Aye.
and all that. Whereas I ended up, for all I'd lived in Spain for 3 or 4 years at that point, I didn't speak a word. I couldn't even order a beer. But I had to, you know, I
Aye.
went from nothing to, in about 3 or 4 months I could speak it fluently.
Aye.
That's just because I was living it. You know,
Aye, you needed
I was
to.
reading the papers, I was speaking to people, and you
Aye.
know, I just got had to do it. But to give you an idea of how bad it was, or whatever, I mean, every day, you know, I was up at Shots to do a wee thing with one of the fellowship things about talking.
Aye.
Don't do this, not to glamorise it. But I was in there, and I'm like, that. Easy for me to say, oh, this is a hotel.
Aye.
But what you got to remember is at 9 o'clock at night, that door still shuts.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter whether you've got a PlayStation
Aye.
or you've got this or you've got that, because I was in at different stages, because I did most of my sentence in Murcia,
Aye.
and then towards the end I get moved up to Carabanchel, which was the worst prison in Europe. And
Aye.
at that point I'm in with the cartels and all that, you know what I mean?
Aye.
The real,
Is this pretty? Because I was when I was doing a wee bit of research, it was saying obviously you get moved to Madrid, like a
Aye,
prison in Madrid. Aye.
Aye, it's
So is it-
Carabanchel.
Right.
They ended up, they knocked that down. The story behind that place got built in the 1930s.
Aye.
It was built by political prisoners, and it's supposed to be haunted for day one because people were dying when they were building it.
Ah, right.
And that was like the kind of bogeyman.
Aye.
I don't know what would be is it Peterhead or something like that used to threaten people with? to go
Peterhead
to-
was a bad one, like for like when it was like Johnny Steele
Aye.
and Jimmy Boyle or that
So
division.
Caravan
aye.
Shell would be where
Equivalent to that.
they threaten people,
Aye.
and it only was Cat A,
Aye.
maximum security. And the thing was, I'm up there. I'm actually supposed to be going to the open prison, but it annoyed them that much that they sent me up there. And you get used to your own me thing, and you think it can't get any worse. And you're a big fish in a small pond. Then you go up there, and it's like, oh, here we go again.
Aye,
But
aye.
that was like, I'd fallen out with the authorities through the stuff with the music and all that.
Aye.
Because we're doing stuff, I was acting like a diva and all that, and causing problems and that. So they sent me up there. And again, I had it's not glamorised, but it's showing you I'm very lucky to be alive. When I get moved up there, nobody knew I was getting moved. All the social workers in my little security blanket, I was like looked after and all that. I'm ended up in Madrid. Now, I was telling all my mates that are well known here
Aye.
about this thing that happened to me, and they're all, for 10 years, they called me a wanker.
Aye.
Who's I was
Aye. Aye.
And I'm telling them about this thing in the prisons, and they know guys that have done time in Spain,
Aye.
and they've ran this by, and they're talking nonsense. I'm going, there's a thing called the Bronx in Carabanchel. There's like 20 guys, and they use it. We call it in Glasgow to tober you up.
Aye.
If somebody doesn't like you when the admissions or arrivals,
Aye.
there's certain cells. Normally it's like 2 or 4,
Aye.
but there's one that's got 20,
Aye.
and they put all the scum in the earth in there. And if they want to sort you out, they put you in there for the night. And the guards will actually, as much as say, sort him out and I'll give you an extra beer in the morning, or I'll give you a packet of fags, or put a
Aye,
bounty
aye.
on you. So you're getting in there, there's you and 19 guys. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who you are.
Aye.
You know what I mean? Or they'll tell them you're a paedophile or something, or make up
Aye,
a lie.
aye, aye.
So you're going to get hammered because their pals got a grudge with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting in there, right? I didn't even know that I'm alive, and I'm thinking, I don't know what's happening. I spent 6 days going around all the jails just to annoy me, in a convoy, arriving before the
Aye. They
freak
call it a ghost train.
Aye, and
Aye.
my money was in one place, I'm in another, and after having a certain level, you're getting comfortable in your surroundings, and it was just back to square one. So I've arrived there. Now, I've walked into this thing, I've never seen like it, because in Mercia it was 2 in a cell,
Mm-hmm.
and it's bunk beds. I'm just looking at this, and I can't honestly remember if it was 4 times 5 or 5 times 4.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got it going way up, as you can see, and it's like, to get a bit of privacy, they've got the blankets hanging down, so that's kind of, and by
Aye, aye.
blankets I mean horsehair blankets,
Aye.
and it's metal frame beds. And I've come in and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Now, before the guys, the guards just sort of not even closed the door, and there's a bit there, and I've just seen somebody coming for there, and it's like the zombie apocalypse.
Aye.
You don't have time to think, and I'm not a hard man.
Aye.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm a
Aye.
fighter or that, but there's the survival mode kicks in,
Of course.
and I've seen this sort of shadowy thing coming for here, and I'm like, they're coming there and that one there. We'll get him out the way, and by luck or whatever, I've grabbed this guy. I've not intended it, and he's hit off the corner of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a metal bed. That's just where I don't to this day know what happened. I'm not glamorising this because I had nightmares about this. But obviously, the other 18 that are coming that way have seen this guy's thing me going like that, and that's just exploded. And they've paused. And at that point, thankfully, a group, the Europeans, had heard that it was a new guy, and they've heard that they're trying to put me in there. So they've
Aye.
come up team-handed. What the hell's going on? He shouldn't be there. Now, I could have died then.
Aye.
It wasn't me being brave or nothing. It was just a reaction. Luckily the other guys
It's
came
something
in.
you don't even know what's happening, really.
Didn't
Aye,
even know
aye.
what's happening.
Mhm.
And that was somebody had, I shouldn't have been in there. That was just like one of the guards for the other prisons has got a mates and going to chuck him in there. He's annoyed us, he's acting like a ticket or he's acting like an idiot. And then I was supposed to be in a gallery further up. But it shows you how somebody can basically, a guard has got the power of life and death over you.
Do you know we were actually talking about this yesterday, me and my missus, but we were watching, I don't know if you've seen it, The Godfather of Harlem.
I haven't seen that yet, no.
It's really good. It's about a guy called Bumpy Johnson who's kind of like in with the mafia and stuff like that, and it's a good box set. But we were saying just how, because obviously a lot of it's police corruption and a lot of it's kind of like and just to see like back in the day, I don't know why people think that. No, I'm not saying it's no as I know it's no as bad as it was back then, but to think that that still doesn't go on is mental. To
Aye.
think that the authorities are as play fair and this and that, it's madness.
I seen stuff that, okay, some people kind of deserve what they get, but I'm always very worried about gossip, because gossip kills, because you can hear something off some person that's got an agenda, and you get no reason to disbelieve them, so you believe them, and you fall out with somebody you don't even know.
Aye.
You know, and it's very dangerous, because and you can't take it back in some circumstances, because there was times that there've been people coming in to the prison, and like the same it was lucky for me that they said there's a European come in, he's on for hash, so guys were looking out for me. There's been circumstances where somebody's come in that was a nonce, or whatever you want to call them. No, the guards have made that clear to everybody.
Was there no protections or anything there? Like
There
in
was,
Spain?
you could go into the protective custody kind of thing,
Aye.
but 99% of the time they were probably right. But what they would do is they put like this person in me like mass murderer,
Aye.
and tell them, and then you'd hear the screams, and they'd be taking bets at how long it would last.
Aye.
And
So was there did you see people getting killed or that in the jails? Aye.
that's what I was trying to say at the start before I digressed about the insensitivity with the drugs and that. I'd never seen people taking heroin, and I'm seeing people lying about. And I remember this Swiss guy, old guy, coming up to me, and I'm like going to help this guy, as you would do, because I never thought he needs help. He's like, don't take that, you know what I mean? This is like first couple of days, and he's like dragging me away. Well, that guy wouldn't help you. Plus, he might stab you, or you know, you don't know, and he might just
Watch what you're doing.
keep yourself to yourself. And that's not what we're brought up to do. It's like as kids. You give your kid a toy, he'll share it until he gets a row off his mouth for giving his toys away. You know what I mean?
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? It's not in our nature, but it's self-preservation as well.
No, you're in fight or flight. You automatically, especially in a foreign jail, when you see all these things going on, it's I can't even imagine. It'd be a different kind of fight or flight you'd be in. Do you know what I mean? So
Well, we got very, because it was me, Joel, and the Moroccan guy were own thing. Now there was gangs that had tunnels.
did you be taking drugs in the jail or that? Oh no, dude.
I smoked a couple of joints, but I was never really into hash a lot. But I never get involved, and that was a kind of them and us. You know,
Aye.
we're not as bad as them. And it was quite funny because I was getting all these sanctions and that, and warnings and that before I discovered the music kind of thing. I'd accrued more time. It was about 3 years into the sentence when I got the band and that. But at that point, I'd actually accrued more time than I'd taken off for refusing to mop the floors and that, because I'm no guilty. I'm not going to mop it.
Aye.
Yet, one of the classic ones was I'll no mop the floors, and I'm getting these warnings, these sanctions against me. They're only minor things, no getting out for a day, or
Aye.
but I'm determined I'm not going to mop the floor. And then they come into the cell. No, there's no very high. It's only 2 bunk beds in that. And I've got 5 buckets, the guy that will no mop the floor, and it's fucking hooch. And the guy's like, you know what I mean? You can't hide it. But then there's some alright guys. This one guy, Don Antonio, everybody else hated him because he was the head screw.
Aye.
But if you did something he didn't like, he would do it to your face.
Aye.
And if you, like, he knew what we were doing. My mate Joel would batter a lot of fucking folk, but only the ones that deserved it.
Aye.
And quite often, if there was bullies in there that were trying to take money off, Joel would intervene and stop the bullies. And the guards respected that because he's like, you know, keeping the law. So they would look at us and go in the booze, and they'd just go, you know, just,
Aye.
you know, it's not worthwhile. You're no taking drugs. You're no causing any.
Aye.
You know, just got on with it, but just, you know what I mean?
Aye. The way. No, that. Listen, I mean, obviously that happens in Scottish prisons and all. You get the good. You're going to get good people and bad people in all walks of life. Do you know what I mean? And I think that you do become that us and them thing.
Aye.
And but within your us, there's still a lot of assholes. You know what I
Aye.
mean? Like
Oh.
within the prison system, I was
Look,
in.
I had to, when I got cleaning that last year, I was meeting up with the guards and that, and there was a lot of things that I had a lot of resentments because, like, briefly, my story, the mates are a bit different. I formed a band in the jail and that we got
I know I was
famous
going to
and
go into that next
that.
time.
But at the end, I felt that they all just left me out to dry when I get sent to Madrid. But what I didn't know was they didn't know anything about it. There's a whole, you love your conspiracy theories. This is a whole different dimension. There was a war going on in Spain because we got the old guard that were brought up under Franco for since the Second World War. They've been able to do what they want.
Aye.
And Spain in the 80s is trying to join the common market. So they've got to bring in reforms. There's all these young kids out of university want to do this and programmes about anti-drugs, education. So they're not getting on.
They're classy.
And right at the front of it is us
Aye.
because we're getting held up as these sort of beacons of, you know, we can do this and that. So every single thing we got, we would lose on the other hand. You know, we'd get, you know, able to do this, but then they'd punish us by taking our money off us or something like that, or, you know, putting an idiot in your cell or something like that. You know, just be petty things. You know, obviously, it
the
ended
big
up...
things in there for you.
The big thing was right at the end, you know, I'm right at our peak. They suddenly decided to send me to Carabanchel when I'm supposed to be going to open prison. It's just a bit of a shock. But they could do it. But I had this thing I didn't know for 30 years until I met the guards that they didn't know anything about it. You know, they just... I'd just disappeared. And the crazy thing was, I'm hearing this off. I'd about 8 of the prison guards and social workers in my place this time last year. And they're busy telling me, and every single one of them told the same story. Now, I speak fluent Spanish, so... I mean, people tell a story, if it's been fed to them, they all say the same thing. But it was all different versions of the same thing. They actually got told my dad had won the national lottery, right? I had part of my sentence to get a 6.5 year fine, 6.5 year sentence, and also got a 65 million fine. Now, these guys had been told that my dad won the national lottery. There wasn't a national lottery in the UK in the 1980s, and paid that, and that's where I disappeared. They thought I was out and enjoying living in a castle and I'm, you know, in Scotland and all that, you know, and I'm, you know, like literally a few hundred miles up the road in Madrid, you know, in a hellhole. But they didn't know that, but it is what it is. But
so how did the music band come about? Because obviously that's quite an interesting part of the story. I
was about 3 years into my sentence route, and I wasn't doing anything bad. I suppose it would be the same as me at school, just non-conformist. Now, I would refuse to do a single day's work. You know, I'm here, I'm not doing it. I was still appealing my sentence because I thought I didn't deserve to be in because they'd faked the evidence. So at that point, if I'd have been 3 years in normally on a 6-year sentence, I'd have been getting out. Because if I'd agreed to my sentence day one, I could have a job in the library and I'd have got out after 3 years. As it stood, I was probably having to do another 4 years because I had sanctions and all that, you know, and parties, and I hadn't earned a single day because in Spain, until you're condemned, you've got no rights whatsoever. But the minute you're condemned, you get like a quarter day off your sentence. So if you had a 10-year sentence and you didn't agree to your sentence to the end, you do 10 years. If you agreed day one, you get out after 7.5 by just agreeing your sentence. If you worked, you get out after 5. And if you'd like really good things, you might get out after 4 if you could swing it a bit. So up until about the 3rd year, I hadn't done a single thing. I hadn't even earned a day off. So I couldn't get out until about 5 anyway. I just wasn't out. Although I could speak Spanish, I refused to speak it to the guards because you know, I wouldn't let them on. I would just calling them all the names. And what happened was part of the trying to rehabilitate people, they brought in a lot of the Spanish, believe it or not, and this is 1990 by this time, I'm in my sentence. Most of the Spanish population couldn't read or write because Murcia was like a farming area, and it's not just in the jails. Most of the people outside couldn't read or write. You know what I mean? So trying to educate people and all that, they brought like teachers and that in to try and do it. It wasn't good done. So they had this idea that one of the guys that was teaching them the language and that was a very well-known Spanish jazz guitarist who had he had a college one half of it was a college of music and one was a college of languages.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a really decent guy. He spent half his life in the States. Now, he spoke like English with a New York accent. It was quite strange. And he was a brilliant help to me, but he was just a decent guy. So he came in to teach the Spaniards how to read Spanish. But they weren't wearing it when they come to classes. So somebody said, but you teach guitar. Do a guitar workshop. So they all wanted to do that. And it was these guys that couldn't play guitar and they were causing chaos. They were breaking the guitars and somebody eventually said, I don't know how I heard that I played guitar. So he grabbed me and there was a boy in the kitchen who I'd never met because obviously he's working all the time. And he said, well, put it together. And you're actually all right. You know what I mean? I played a bit before, you know what I mean? It's like, well, right. There's a music competition coming up. We could get like guitars and do this, you know, do a wee bit. And the boy in the kitchen, he's getting a day off his sentence for doing it. He's like, I'm not going to go and play guitars. I'm getting out of here, you know. And, I'm not going to bring me that for doing guitars. But at the same time, my French mate's going, aye, but my wee mate plays drums and all that, you know. We didn't find out he couldn't, but he was just...
Aye.
Because what had happened, he said, well, what we can do, there's this event coming up. Every year they do a Festival of Mercy in the women's prison where they allow the families and the kids and that to come in. And this was coming up at the weekend. Bring it in, we'll get guitars, and, you know, and if you can do this, we'll get budget for that. So the beg, stealed and borrowed guitars and that. And all we did was... we'd no real time to rehearse, but if you're a guitarist, you can blags. Do you know that song? Aye. So we'd done that Santana Europa.
Aye.
And we both knew it, so we'll just fire on. You can play that for ages. And he said, for the Waynes, what can we do for the Waynes? No, keep them. And he's went, we'll do La Bamba.
Aye.
Great, well, he's singing. And then we've suddenly realised that La Bamba in English is just twist and shout.
Aye.
You know, it's the same chord.
Aye.
But then... he's working, they've threw in a spanner in the works, but the council, they'll give you guitars and that will give you a budget, but you've got to do one of your own songs. So it's not that I'm any better than him. It's like, well, you've got time, so you can write a song and we'll just do it. So we thought nothing of it. We've had a couple of hours practice and we've been up to do it. And this is 1990. At that point, remember the wee Amstrad video recorders had come out, they were at 300 quid, everybody was getting them. Everybody was videoing the wee mini cassettes.
I remember it, like...
Everybody's walking about with them, filming, you know, the PA
Home Alone
classes.
and that. Home Alone and that.
They're filming, you know, opening a letter and all that, just for something to do. So we didn't think nothing of it, these people filming it. What we didn't know is our very first ever concert is went on this programme called Chickalandia, which is national children's primetime television on Spain on a Sunday morning. It's like Ant and Dec used to be. So we went on that. We don't know. This is 3 idiots. I've never played together. But the thing was, we've got up to the stage and we're starting to play. And we're like, you know, but we've never had the drums to right up to the last, because you don't need the drums, that just makes a noise. And Michelle, the drummer's like that. And then, you can't play the drums. And I'm like, wait a minute. And he's like that. Well, he's my mate's mate. And he's went, I just wanted to see the woman. And the thing was, we had to keep him as the drummer for then on, because he was getting out and going to all the things. So it was like Schindler's List, because we just kept adding. We then got a bass player and we got a harmonica player, and you know, the amount of people we could get involved, you know what I mean? We did a whole choir if we could have gone in, because we were getting a wee bit extra perks and getting to, you know, move a bit between the galleries, and you know how that works. So our first ever gig was on that. We didn't even have a name. And what happened was that went on children's TV. Unbeknown to us, at night, that's when on like the sort of 6 o'clock report in Scotland. At 10 o'clock, it's when on the ITN news all over the UK. And it's on the lunchtime news. And we're not aware of it because we're locked up. So we've come out of the Commodore with this canteen. And a guard's coming saying, oh, the press are on the thing. Maybe what's the name of your band? And the TV's above us, and we're watching the Berlin Wall coming down. And I'm not going to say it was me. I'm not going to say it wasn't me. Well, I'll call it Berlin. Oh, it's quite good. Because the other name, Michelle, the drummer, wanted to call it Porcino, which is why not. And we had that, he'd written that on the drums, and we were going, that's shite. So Berlin stuck. But then we didn't know that Berlin was the name of the band that recorded You Take My Breath Away in Top Gun. So very quickly, somebody clicked on that. and it was 1990, so we just added the 90 on it. But if you go on my website, there's a lot of stories. There's Spanish DJ Angel Sapena, who's mega famous. He was a big supporter of me for day one, and he was interviews. What was the 90 for? No, and it's like I'm saying in Spanish, well, it was because of the copyright and all that. But then he went, or I went, but it wasn't so they could send us to jail or sue us because they couldn't have made it any worse, you know what I mean? But that's how the 90 bit came out, Berlin 90, and then it just stopped. But it was incredible for the start. Now, people
And
think
the song done really well, didn't it? Like the song he's made.
what happened was it was a very short period of time, about a year, but what happened in that was just mental because my first concert was that Sunday. The following Saturday, there was 2 radio stations had phoned up the prison to say, could we play, they might do it. Now, they thought it was a wind-up, you know. So they actually booked in their Coventry Radio, Clyde and Virgin Radio or something like that to come in. And the 2 of them are having wars over who's got the rights. So we've got 2 radio things and we've played 2 songs. So I've had to write another song so we could play 2 of our own songs live on like the Saturday radio thing. That's went out. And the following Sunday, so 2 weeks from our first concert, he said, right, you've got to do another song. You know, and we've got guitars and that, we'd rehearsed a bit since. And we actually played 3 songs live on Spain's Top 40 show.
Wow, didn't it?
That's 2 weeks after we picked up the guitars.
And
at the same time, you know, it's going out in magazines and TV and they're all over the press. But, like, because I've got this mental insanity streak and I'll show them, I'd forgotten about a lot of the stuff that's just, it sounds funny now, but it's quite embarrassing in a way how much of a dickhead I was. I'm going out to do these things like in the open prison. Now, the director's taking a chance because I'm not convicted. I'm not allowed out. But the radio station's there. And they're wanting to take my fingerprints. And because that guard's annoyed me for months, or he's maybe giving me a scalp, I'm not getting my fingerprints taken. Well, you're not going out. Okay, back to the cell. No, but you can't come out. And at this point, the director, and he's on the intercom, where's McCarthy? He's not coming because he's not letting us take his fingerprints. Put him on. Why are you not letting him take your fingerprints? And I speak fluent Spanish now, so I'm like, well, I'm playing a guitar, so can you? And it's not the worst thing, you know what I mean? But those guards suddenly forgot that, so they let me out, and then when I come back, I'm getting scalped, you know what I mean? And then it was like, what's it on the next one? And he's not coming out now because he's not had a shower. No, it's on the radio, you know, McCarthy, the fingerprints to follow me. We can let you away with that, but why you needing a shower? It's on the effing radio. And I'm like, well, I'm not coming out there and I don't need it. You know? But the top 40 shows there, now for them to give me a shower at 8 o'clock in the morning, they've got to put on the water for the whole prison. So it's not just a wee thing, you know, and there's a lot of people losing face. So you can imagine I hang on my ticket, but that gets paid back, you know, when nobody sees it, you know, I'm getting doings. But I thought I was like, you know, it was Steve McQueen, the Cooler King, you know, I'm the coolest guy. But the thing was, nobody ever seen this. And the worst one of the lot was when I eventually agreed. So in order to get out, we entered a song in the music competition, and she said we won. So the prize was to go out to the recording studio.
Is it called Runaways?
Runaway was the song that we entered into the music competition, and the song we recorded was Stormy Waters. That's the one that we talk about a bit. Brian Anderson's going to make a video of. But I had to, in order to go out, all the rest of the band's all convicted, so they can go out, and I'm the only one that's holding it back. So we'd made an agreement, and this is where it starts going pear-shaped, and I've got the documents there. I'll send you them later, because it sounds that conspiracy. Right? When you're in prison, and if you're OCD like me, you can document everything. I've got all the paperwork, so I can't make it up. So what happened is, we've won the song Runaway, we recorded live in the prison, because we can't go out. Everybody else is doing heats. You know, like the Glasgow heat, the Scotland heat, the Manchester heat, you know what I mean? We just kept playing our song, and because it's recorded live, it's a battle of the bands where they can play live, so that's it. But when it got to the thing where we won the recording thing, we've got to go out to the recording studio. But what I didn't know was, see the guy that recorded, Pepe Moreno, Spanish producer, he came in and recorded his live, that song Runaway. He was offered hundreds of money to come in and record us for a prize. He went, no, they've got to come to the recording studio. And see that guy, I didn't know that they were giving that guy all sorts of grief, threatening him, and he's only a music producer.
Aye.
Like, if you don't do this, you know, your council tax will go out, or you'll day you for sound. And he stuck by his guns and said,
Aye.
no, they've got to come out. They've earned it. You know what I mean? They come out and do it.
Aye.
And I didn't know that. And it was absolute chaos because in the Spanish press, you know, I didn't know we were famous for years because I'd get deported and all. They kept telling their story and it was kept getting told. And one of the things is, like, you only know what happened to you. I remember getting in the van going to the recording studio.
Aye.
What I didn't know was, and Pepe Marin, the producer, saying he had this villa in the middle of nowhere with his recording studio, and he says he couldn't get moving. He says it was ridiculous. There was like 4 armed cars, you know, the old with the billion cars, you know what I mean, like that, with us in them. Then there's police cars, there's outriders. Then you've got prison staff, guards that are wanting to be there. Then you've got all the social workers that want to be there. Then you've got the band's families that want to be there. And you've got all the reporters. He said there was like hundreds of people outside this record. I don't see that because I'm in like handcuffed and all. And only found out last year, and this is the incredible, like, now this is the 2 social workers and a couple of the guards telling us, because the bass player in it, he tragically, not long afterwards, he died of AIDS in the jail and never got out. And on he was telling stories to different people and that. Now, I didn't know this until 30 years later. When we've arrived at the recording studio, he's got a couple of guys outside, because this guy was the top armed robber. So it's not unusual for him to be able to, you know, armed robber. So he's got a couple of motors outside the recording studio. And, you know,
ready to try and go.
They're shooters and all that. I don't know nothing about this till 30 years later. And he was having such a laugh that he went, oh, no, we'll do it tomorrow. You know, no, we'll do this, or we'll get a chance to do this again. We'll do it at the court appearance and all that, you know, whatever. But they were actually going to break him out, you know. And there's stuff like that, the chaos that's involved, you know what I mean?
The madness in it.
And one of the best ones that came out in the Spanish newspapers last year when the story broke again was how mental my attitude to things were. Now, when we went up, we were originally, they must have had it in for me, to be honest, because they asked for 6 years and 56 million.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I got 6.5 and 65. I'm like, I've got the only dyslexic judge in Spain, but it's not going down the way, it's going up the way. So the way it works is when you go, I'd appealed it, and then in order to get out to do this recording studio, they've basically said, if I agree to my sentence, they'll immediately put me in the open prison so I can go out and do the recording things and all that, and that'll be it, you know, and whatever. And of course, this whole war's going on with the social workers and that, and it's come to the treatment team, which is like the parole board, and they've just told me to go and beat it after all the promises. So I've spat the dummy out. Now, every day for 3 years, I'll show you the books, they're there. We've done rehearsals and all that, right? And this is Christmas, 1st of January, the news has come through, they've screwed me, so I'm like, I'm not doing in. You can see it, there's concerts every day. And then up until January to February, the end of February, there is nothing. And I've got sheets of paper there that it's so conspiracy, you can't make it up. It's legally impossible to get time off your sentence for working until you're convicted. I've got a document there that's saying they're taking 2 years off my sentence for redemption and preventivo. Chris has seen it. Because they've now got all this thing. Why aren't they going out to do it's in the press and all that, and they've got to get me out back. So they've knocked me back for the 3rd grade, so I'm not playing. I'm like back in normal population. I couldn't get out about the music. So 2 weeks before the recording session's booked, and it's been announced everywhere, and they've milked all the press. I've suddenly got 2 grave sanctions as well. Now, grave sanctions, I'm not going to tell you what they're for. That's the highest you can get without going to another trial. Mm-hmm. That's the highest disciplinary. You can't wipe them off. I've got them wiped off, and I've got 2 years knocked off my sentence if I go out to the recording studio, and I've got the paperwork there. You know what I mean? So that put a lot of people's noses out. So we've done that recording session. I think they're brilliant. But I've no help matters when I went to the judge either. Judges went, like, you've got the choice of your 6.5 years, you've got 65 million you've got to pay, or you can do 6 months. Mm-hmm. Don't be a brace. Where am I going to get 65 million? So we'll do the 6 months. I can't let it go. I turn round, and this is in court transcripts what they produced. I'd forgotten about this. is I've turned round to the judge and said, look, Your Honour, I tell you what, I've not got the 65 million, fluent Spanish, very polite and all that. But, and you can see the lawyers are all going, oh no, what's he going to say? Your Honour, I'm quite happy to do a year on top of my sentence, and you will give me 65 million.
Aye.
Silence, and then they've started laughing, apparently. I don't remember this, but then it's just got the whole place is in chaos and the judges like that.
Aye.
So I thought it was quite funny. But what it doesn't say in the newspapers is I get taken down to the holding cells and they battered the shit out of me for, tell me I wasn't that funny.
Aye.
Then in the armed car back to the jail, they explained, and then in the thing, me. And shortly after that, right at the peak, we're fine. I wasn't that funny because that's when I get sent to Caravan Shell.
Aye.
So you fight the
aye.
law, but you don't always win.
No.
You know what I mean? So they get their own back.
So I mean, it's a shame because we've not had there's probably loads more we could cover, but obviously we're coming up to the end, and obviously there's that much we could have went into. But so which kind of have you got coming up in the future? What have you got?
The songs that you're talking about, I was lucky enough that Paul there knows your camera guy. He knows
Aye.
Ian Henderson. Ian was brilliant for me. He did a video for the song that we recorded live called Runaway, which you can see on the website. A lot of people liked that. It was recorded live inside the prison. And the song that we actually went to the recording studio to do, a song called Stormy Waters, which was under recording things, it ended up as the first song on that year's A Year of Rock compilation. It wasn't like it can out now, but it was never released as a single or anything like that. And then it's just been out there, people can listen to it. But Brian Anderson, the Glaswegian photographer, he's done all the crime stuff. He's also done books. He's done like the Faces book, Faces 2, which I'm in. But all this underworld things. But he's also more relevant now. He's done like Jerry Cinnamon book. He's done books on Oasis, Bay City Rollers. He's done all his music things. So he's always been like in and around all the top tabloids and that magazines with his photography. He's got all his websites and his magazines. Been a great help to me. So he's turned down. He's like, that song, I like that. So why don't we do a video? And he's about to go out. I think Brian's away over in Ibiza. So we get time to do it now, but he's over in Ibiza. He's doing the photography for their upcoming Irving Welsh film. But if we get time to do it before, he's wanting to do a video for my song Stormy Waters. To do like a video and just
that'd be cool, aye.
So it's taking time to get out,
Aye.
The song might have taken, it's like 35 years to get released. Thankfully, I was released sooner. It would have been a murder. I was still waiting to release. But it's been a pleasure, mate.
No, listen, and so I always give it like last wee message, because obviously we've covered a lot of topics, and obviously you've got, I know you could probably do 3 or 4 different parts for your life story, Brian. Alan, sorry, could you take that out there? So you could obviously take a million parts, Alan. But what's your last message to the kind of viewers?
Like what I'm trying to get out, because I haven't done a podcast for ages, and it was when I was seeing your podcast and this sort of hope and things like that. Look, a year ago, like I was sitting in a place in Spain, and on the face of it, I had everything. I was on the villa and all that. But I was absolutely broken inside with the drink, the drugs, and all that. And obviously, I've been in various different recovery fellowships for just over a year now. And I'm not an angel, but for MD that's, struggling, particularly for MD that's in the jail, don't take what I did as the example. Take what I'm doing now and talking about the rehabilitation and stuff like that. Because see if you're there and you can do it. I was lucky because it took 3 years for me to get the music. Now, whether it's the music, the painting, education, because I had this chip on my shoulder that I thought by playing my music, I was beholden to them or helping them.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. I was actually using the system against themselves because I thought I'd be like, that's like grassing if I help, if I play in the band. No, I'm not. I'm helping myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can get out of that prison quicker and become a better person, that's actually turning the system against themselves. You know what I mean? You're not defeating the system, but you're making the best out of a bad situation, because you can sit there and vegetate and have a pity party, and that's probably what they want.
I know.
Whereas
Definitely.
If you get your education, come out there better, and you know what I mean. With the recovery groups and that, see a lot of cracking people going about, and my experience with the drugs and that, I'm in an older group, and I'm not saying I had it easy, but didn't have the stuff that was going on today. You know
Aye.
what I mean? It's brutal going out with all this fentanyl and stuff like that, and kids,
I know.
and it's no nice. But if anything, you know, if you can get into something that's, you know, positive or that, you know what I mean? There's me. I gave up smoking a month ago and I'm out running like I need you every day, you know what I mean?
Brilliant.
A year ago, I had been taking that much drugs that May last year, I stopped taking drugs. And until June, July, I wasn't fit enough to fly home. And I was looking at my Google app, in the 6 months up until June, from December until June, I'd done 10 kilometres, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was 5 kilometres to the local hospital and 5 kilometres back. I hadn't left my flat, yet I'm on a 5-star golf resort, having parties every night, thinking I'm living the life.
Aye.
I couldn't walk to the further than the toilet. And like yesterday morning, I ran 5K. You
I know
what
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's like,
It's
you know
I
what I mean?
know, I know, and and you obviously are looking great. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of shines out. But no, listen, but Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's really has, and your story's crazy. It's one of these stories that's like it could make a film of it. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
So
there's been a lot of, that's one of the things is the amount of people that are talking about that. But I've got this thing, I want things done tomorrow.
I
Today,
know, I think
and
we've all got that time.
I'll show you afterwards. I'm not talking about bumming myself up, but with everything from Netflix, BBC, STV, Amazon. But they all come on, listen to it and go, we're coming back. And then you're like, here we go again. And it's just, it's
Aye.
taken so long, but I want it done in a day. And they've got, obviously, it's not done in a day.
Aye.
But thanks again, man.
No, thank you very much. Cheers.